What is your worst sleepover experience? At a friend's birthday party sleepover when we were around 11-12 years old. About 5 of us were on the back patio doing that's what she said jokes since we just learned about them from the show The Office. I guess I took it a little too far when I said ID like a big cock in my mouth, that's what she said. Soon as I finished saying it, I looked over to my friend's father standing at the open sliding door in complete silence. I slept in the spare room of my friend's house and didn't realize the bloody curtains had an automatic opening time of 7 a.m. which scared the living shit out of me. Was very young when 2 friends stayed over. I was about to sleep with my eyes shut when one randomly started SHT talking about me thinking I was asleep, and the other joined in after some hesitation. They even considered I was awake and tried to slap me awake to make sure they were safe. I haven't forgotten about it since, even though it's been about 20 years. My friend and I both got diarrhea from eating bad nachos. He shat his pants, and my dad had to give him a pair of shorts that fit him loose, and later we were jumping on the bed headbanging to Metallica, and his shorts slipped, and I saw peen. I've mentioned this in another comment, and I still have never been able to rationalize it. I was friends with a twin as a preteen. Obviously she and her twin shared a birthday. One year, they had a huge sleepover with both their friend groups. We were all having a blast. And when night came, we realized it would be really cramped if the 2 friend groups tried to squish into the 2 girls' respective bedrooms. I suggested we all sleep on the floor and couches in their downstairs living room. The downstairs was its own suite, separate kitchen, bathrooms, everything. It was nowhere near the parents' room and brother's room upstairs, so there was no way us doing this would affect anyone else in the family, and we were all girls. But according to her parents, my suggestion was the equivalent of high treason and blasphemy to the highest degree. Full-on publicly berated me in front of all the other girls at the sleepover and told me that wasn't allowed and also stupid. Okie dokie then. So we all squeezed into the 2 tiny bedrooms and nobody got any sleep. I figured at the time it was one of those things I'd eventually understand as an adult. But here I am, 30 years old and still baffled. Stayed over a friend's house in high school. As the night wore on, realized that the house was riddled with cockroaches. They were even in the bed. Slept on a chair because it was too late to go home. I slept over in Aberdeen, very cold place in Scotland, and her parents didn't let her have any electric blankets or thick duvets. It was freezing the whole night. Her dad kept coming in and asking if we needed anything. But when I said I wanted a thicker blanket, he just laughed as if I was joking. Well, I wouldn't call it a sleepover. But after a night of drinking I completely blacked out. The last thing I remember is me and some friends walking in a pouring rain because no taxi would take us. When I woke up, I had absolutely no recollection of how did the last night end. Then I opened my eyes and it was pitch dark. I was violently hangover, in a completely dark room. Somewhere every step I made, I stumbled into something which fell on the floor. It took me around 2 minutes of moving lowly around the room trying to find a light switch. After 2 minutes I stepped on something soft, said here ouch. I almost shit my pants, found out it was my friend, I stepped on his balls. He told me we are in his cellar turned clubhouse. Pretty weird few minutes when you wake up not knowing where you are and there are no visual clues to give you an idea. Had to sleep in a room with a bunch of snake tanks and like 10 old school mechanical ticking clocks. The next morning the kid's dad ran him down in the backyard for some rank trivial and beat him. He's been in and out of prison since 16, poor bastard. I slept on a cot under a punching bag with no pillows or blankets when I was a teenager. Every time I went to turn over I hit my head on the punching bag. Was sharing a bed with 2 friends and at one point in the night I heard one giving the other head. I just pretended to be asleep until one of them started groping me. He said come on dude, I can handle both of you. I just said no thanks and he went back to sucking the other. Thing is was we were 14 and I barely knew them at this point. I never mentioned it. Was at my friend's house one night and got to experience hearing their parents having their own sleepover, if you know what I mean. One of my classmates had a big camp out in her backyard in elementary school. I was already scared, but then we kept hearing sounds outside. The girl just shrugged it off and said sometimes their elderly neighbor wanders around their backyard. I was so scared I ran barefoot in the pitch black to their house and fell asleep on their couch. When I was about 12, I went to a sleepover at my best friend's house for his birthday. His family was great and I always felt welcome there. The sleepover was pretty typical. We watched a movie, ate junk food, went to bed but didn't sleep. We just stayed up all night talking and eating sweets. At the crack of dawn, we snuck downstairs to play a game on the family PC. This was the mid-90s. Everything was going well and the strategy we'd planned during the night was working perfectly. But then, out of nowhere, probably due to sleep deprivation and a sugar overload, my friend had a full-on seizure. He let out a guttural moan that terrified me. Panicking, I ran upstairs to wake his parents, and they quickly called an ambulance. He was taken to the hospital for tests, with his dad going along. His mom, still calm and kind, offered me some breakfast before I grabbed my things and walked the short distance home. As soon as I saw my mom, the shock of what had happened hit me, and I broke down. Thankfully, my friend didn't have any serious health issues and we're still best friends to this day. In fact, we've even been each other's best man. We were talking and laughing in her room after her parents told us to go to bed. Her dad came and spanked both his daughters, and then me for still being up. I told my mom about it and she said I should have gone to bed then. It wasn't no petty pat either, it was full body thrown into it while he screamed at us until his face was red to go to bed. After he left, we just laid there in silence with the light still on. Breakfast was quiet the next morning too. Stayed at a popular girl's house when in my preteens and still learning how to manage my period. We all slept in a common room and slept on a futon with a sheet covering it, and yet, murder scene in the morning. I'm still mortified when I think about it. We both made so many jokes about being gay and how we would like to fuck that we actually couldn't sleep close to one another and woke up every time one of us moved at night. Was at my best friend's parents' house when I was 12. My father's brother came to their house in the early afternoon to pick me up and tell me my mom ended her own life the night of my sleepover. Never forgave myself for being out at it. Thank you for your support. Yes, 40 years later and I am in a much better place, married, kids, great career, etc. In the end, my mom's biggest challenge was my father's adultery and abuse. She decided that was her way out. Unfortunately, it left me in a tortured state for 2 years until I got a full scholarship to a boarding school and later to university. My father and I had rarely spoken from then to his death last year, when I was in such a positive state that I was indifferent to the news when his lawyer called to tell me that he left me very young, around the time my friends started raiding our parents' liquor cabinets, drank way too much vodka, and ate a tray of brownies. Pooped a mix of brownie and vodka for most of the night. One of my first times being drunk, and I still don't like vodka to this day. Also at a different sleepover with the same friends, we wanted to see what would happen if we put a 9-volt battery up to my braces. Braces sparked and heated up, melting the protective rubber that keeps the jagged metal parts from cutting the inner lips. The next day, the mom of the kid whose house we were at woke us up bright and early to go to church. She had recently gotten really into Christianity, even though she had not discussed this with us beforehand and had never taken us to church at any of the other sleepovers. My family wasn't even Christian. I said I was just going to walk home. I lived one street away and hopefully have my parents bring me to the orthodontist to fix the damage to my braces, but she wouldn't hear it. Had to sit through a church service and Sunday school for a religion I wasn't a part of, with my braces shredding my inner mouth the whole time. Fucking sucked. Somehow in elementary school got an invite to a popular girls' sleepover party. I knew the host was super into playing hide and go seek. I planned to win the game and cement a real friendship with said girl. I climbed onto a closet in the basement and covered myself up with the stuff that was on the floor. I promptly fell asleep. I woke hours later to find a search party for me. I wasn't invited back. However, this really wasn't my biggest party foul of the night.